Well, at this hour, a legal showdown is unfolding between the Department of Justice and a Washington, D.C. judge. Judge James Boasberg has demanded the department reveal details about two deportation flights involving alleged Venezuelan immigrants. Now, last week, more than 200 migrants in the U.S. were flown to El Salvador after that country's president agreed to accept them. They're now being held in prison there. And Attorney General Pam Bondi says the government may invoke state secrets privilege to block Judge Boasberg's order. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had this to say earlier today.
The judge in this case is essentially trying to say that the president doesn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists from our American soil. That is an egregious abuse of the bench. This judge does not have that authority. It is the opinion of this White House and of this administration, and that's why we're fighting this in court. And it's very, very clear that this is an activist judge who is trying to usurp the president's authority.
CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen joins us now from Washington. Jake, that noon Eastern time deadline has gone and passed. Any word on the administration's response, if any?
We have not seen any new information hit the docket yet, although it's likely that this was potentially just sent to Judge Boasberg, if it was sent at all. I'm sure there'll be more to come in the next couple of minutes, but just the scene set, really what we've seen, this kind of ping-pong battle over the last couple of days between people like Karoline Leavitt, Elon Musk, and President Trump, accusing Judge Boasberg of being a, quote, activist judge. Elon Musk and allies have called to impeach him, including President Trump, which means a Senate hearing and Senate votes to remove him from his position. This is all because on Saturday, Judge Boasberg blocked the deportation of these alleged Tren de Aragua gang members to El Salvador. The Salvadoran government accepted them, and all the footage that you're seeing now was basically staged media which caught these flights as they landed. The judge just simply wants to know, in this whole standoff, more details and operational details on the flight. The Department of Justice is saying the judge really has no right to ask for any of that, in addition to that basically being moot, because there will be an appeals hearing on Monday in front of a three-panel judge here in Washington, D.C., which will hear, again, a higher court argument to hear arguments from both sides as to why this block, for now, should be struck down.
And Jake, I want to ask you about a developing story out of Georgetown University. A researcher detained by immigration authorities on March 17th. Now, CBS News learned his name is Badar Khan Suri. He is an Indian national, a postdoctoral candidate teaching at the university on a student visa. Now, the Department of Homeland Security confirmed Suri's visa was canceled for what they call foreign policy reasons. The agency posted on X saying, quote, Suri was a foreign exchange student at Georgetown University, actively spreading Hamas propaganda and promoting anti-Semitism on social media. Now, Georgetown released a statement on the detention saying in part, quote, we are not aware of him engaging in any illegal activity, and we have not received a reason for his detention. We expect the legal system to adjudicate this case fairly. Now, CBS News has some reporting on this. Jake, what have you learned?
That's right. This morning I went to a federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia, just down the road from here, where we obtained the initial complaint by Mr. Khan Suri's attorneys, who argued that A, he has not been charged with anything, nor are there allegations. He has been moved from Virginia to Louisiana, where he's being held now, and his attorneys said that they fear he could potentially be sent to a migrant detention center near the U.S.-Mexico border, where then he would likely be deported from back to India. His wife is a U.S. citizen who is here. The government alleges that potentially family members of hers were affiliated or have been affiliated with Hamas, and thus, because of her potentially outspoken views, and there really has not been evidence proven in a court of law or shown or filed yet from the government as to this, but that he and his wife were maybe espousing some allegations about Hamas and criticizing Israel for the war over there. He has 3 children, and basically as he was walking into his house a couple days ago, he was arrested by hooded ICE agents, or Department of Homeland Security agents, who wore masks. They grabbed him. He was able to say goodbye to his wife as she handed over his passport to these agents, and then he was brought to this facility. So there's certainly more to come on this. This is very similar to the cases that we've seen seen all across the country so far of people who are here on visas who have been outspoken about the U.S.'s handling and Israel's handling of the war in Gaza and Israel, and we'll be certainly keep you posted on what further developments happen and whether a judge gets involved at some point today or tomorrow to potentially try to block this release, as we saw in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia student in New York.
Yeah, the president and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have both said to expect more arrests like this. Finally, Jake, yesterday a federal judge declined to block the Department of Government Efficiency's efforts to take over the U.S. Institute for Peace amid some legal challenges. What more can you tell us about that?
Right. There was an emergency hearing yesterday after late last week and over the weekend. DOGE officials we worked with law enforcement and the FBI and Metropolitan Police here in Washington to go into this U.S. Institute of Peace, which is a peace building and peacekeeping organization that is handled and run by the U.S. government. The board of that organization can be appointed by the president, and in a differentiator from the other legal cases in which we've seen this takeover, the judge ruled that there were issues with the way that this case was handled in terms of who actually was the defendant and what President Trump's power to either disband or reorganize the group is. She said that DOGE's handling was completely inappropriate. However, she decided to not block their access to the building for now. So we've seen, again, another government institution, government agency takeover by Elon Musk and his allies in DOGE. Again, certainly more to come on this front, too, as these other independent agencies, maybe more on the fringe, not necessarily cabinet administration, cabinet level buildings have been taken over.
Jake Rosen, I know you're going to be keeping an eye on that for us. Thank you so much.